Welcome to the Three Championship Drive podcast on YouTube, hosted by me, Lance Caporossi. Follow me on X at Lance Caporossi, the same way you see it spelled on the screen. And check out the Three Championship Drive podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit the subscribe button over there and do me a favor, tell a Pistons fan. Bringing my boy Zach on. This might be a permanent thing. He got his headset in. It's looking great. I just don't know if you're playing a video game or not with the headset in. But
no video games. We're
no video
focused.
games. Focused, lasers on. Here we go. So we're going to talk about prospects. That's been the theme of the podcast the last few episodes. So these ones may not make sense, though. I know I have the title up on the screen, prospects that make sense. But these three, maybe not. I kind of lean more towards not making sense for the Pistons. But we're going to talk about them anyways because they're very popular players. And the first one is the big guy out of Purdue, all of Canada on his back, Zach Edey. That's who it is. Very skilled player with incredible size, if you don't know this about him. Gray hands, good touch around the rim, keeps the ball up high, gets it up quickly, has some variety to his post moves with half hooks, flip shots, dunks and layups around the rim, draws a ton of fouls and shoots over 70% from the line, moves well with great coordination. In college, he's a post up back to the basket player. Like they run their entire offense through him. His usage is like around 32%, which is something he won't have in the NBA. And I think primarily what he'll be in the NBA offensively is setting screens and just rolling to the rim, catching lobs, things like that, because he is 7'4". That catch radius is just unreal. I don't know if he's a lottery pick, though, and I know that there's a lot of mock drafts that have him that high. But, Zach, what are your thoughts on Zach Edey?
That is just a large human being,
No skill?
and Canada is literally could fit on his back. Like you crushed that. I don't have any animosity towards Purdue by any means. But the only thing I'm upset about is their last year fall in the first round of the NCAA tournament, which really made me sad because they destroyed my bracket the first day.
Lost a lot of money, huh?
Lost a lot of money. But with Zach Edey, if we're talking Pistons fit, no, I don't think he's a Pistons fit. I don't see him as a lottery pick just because, yeah, he has size, but his versatility is very minimal when it comes to defending the perimeter in a scoring league. So drafting a guy that's 7'4", like that's the guy that you put on the Lakers that LeBron just grabs to go into the playoffs with type player. If he fits your system, sure, he'd be a great pick. But with how the league is trending, I don't see him being a lottery pick.
See, that's the thing I struggle with too, because the pace in the NBA is it's so fast for Zach Edey. Now, real quick before we get into more of this, and I'll talk about my fit here in a second, but defensively, you're only going to be able to play drop with him in the NBA. And I do see a real role for him on an NBA team where he can alter shots. But every NBA team that he faces up against, they're going to try to hunt him on defense and get him in space with guards just dancing with him. And I don't know if he has the footwork and the lateral quickness. I mean, he is a very skilled player, don't get me wrong. And I think this is something he'll always continue to work on. But the NBA has just moved past his skill set. So, again, I do see a role for him just as a drop center, being able to alter shots. But I mean, if you can only play him like 20 minutes a game, is he really worth a lottery pick? I think if there's one team, and I don't know why they're always on my mind when I think of like Zach Edey, but the Boston Celtics, I would absolutely love to see them draft Zach Edey. I think that's a team. They're well managed, they're well coached. They can identify strengths of players and they can put them in positions to succeed. I would totally love to see Zach Edey in a Boston Celtics uniform. I think it would just be great. For some reason, that just like screams to me like, yeah, we can find a way to use Zach Edey and make him successful. I just don't think he's worth a lottery pick. And if I'm the Detroit Pistons, I avoid drafting him because developmental wise, it's probably not going to be there in Detroit, but also the system that Monty Williams has in place, it just doesn't seem like it's creative enough to use a guy with that kind of size.
I really like. I didn't think about that. I like the Boston comparison, mainly because he is literally the flip opposite player as of Al Horford. Al Horford is your perimeter defense, is your 3-point shooter, which Al Horford is a sniper. I don't care what anybody says. That
Yeah.
dude can. That dude, him and Brook Lopez really can stroke that thing from three. And that thing, it's incredible how well they shoot for their size. But I like that pick. I like that play. They could have a good pick because they're gonna make a finals run this year. So if you have a Zach Edey that's falling all the way to the 20s, mid 20s in this draft, I don't think you can pass up on him. He's an All-American.
Yeah, I think there's a real world that we're living in where Zach Edey does drop out of the lottery. I think he will blow scouts away with his ability, with his skill set. And I think there will be some GM out there that thinks like, man, like there is a way we could use this guy. I just don't see any of those teams in the lottery doing that. And that's just fair. And I mean, Zach Edey, he very well could go in the lottery. I'm not saying don't draft him if you think you're one of these teams that could find a role for him. I just think he drops out of the lottery. And I think that could probably be the best situation for Zach Edey. Take a lot of less pressure off of him and just kind of let him, just take his time with an NBA organization. But if we were like 20, if this was 20 years ago and we're drafting in '04, he's probably a top 3 pick, So Pistons probably take him number 2 over Darko Milicic. And if we're talking like '04. But who's your NBA comparison for me? You were telling me you have a few of these and you wanted to surprise me.
Yeah, so with this with Zach Edey, and you even listed off his attributes that work perfectly for this, so I know that you're not going to disagree with it. But I have him compared to Andre Drummond, a
Ooh,
better shooting free throw than Andre Drummond. That's what I have him because Andre, he couldn't guard perimeter. He struggled. He wasn't slow for his size, but I think he was just 7 foot, maybe under 7 foot. Zach Edey's 7'4", and weighs more than what Andre Drummond did coming out of
yeah.
college. But catching lobs, setting screens, just being in the way, like that's what Zach Edey would be in this league. As much as I used to love Andre Drummond and all of his TikToks and YouTube videos of the offseason, him shooting threes out in the backyard, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the year he does it, and then it's not even
Yeah.
close to what we saw in his videos. Was the biggest disappointment I ever had on social media with Andre Drummond.
Who Okay, let me ask you this since you brought up Andre Drummond. Who has more I gotta see how many career 3-pointers he has. Do you think Zach Edey finishes with more career 3-pointers than Andre Drummond?
In his stint in the NBA,
Yeah.
no. I think he's smarter and he knows his role. He's not going to be shooting threes. Andre thought he legit could, and
So
I don't think
yeah,
Edey. I think Edey shot one in college and he was 1 for 1. He banked it home.
but there is
I
a tape out there though where he's shooting from the corner and he's draining them. And
so that's the Zach Edey we're drafting, the corner 3 specialist.
I'm
That's
not
his
saying
that's his 2K25 badge. He's sitting there in the corner just popping them up left and right. I don't think he finishes with more threes than Andre. Not even
okay. So
close.
how many 3-pointers do you think Andre Drummond has in his career?
17.
Ooh, close, 15.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I almost got that one.
How
But
many do
yeah,
you how many do you think he took in his career?
38.
Well, dude, come on. You think he's shooting that well from 3? No, he took 120. I think that's the more surprising number that he took 123 pointers in his career so far. So
That's bad, dude.
I'm gonna say Zach Edey finishes with more 3-pointers in his career than Andre Drummond. And I'm also gonna go out and say he takes less 3-pointers than Andre Drummond to get to 15. That might be a hot take.
I'm gonna have to save this somewhere for the next 2 years so I can look at it.
It's going to take him longer than 2 years, but I think Zach Edey will
So
finish with more
remind myself.
3-pointers.
That's my parlay for all of his games next year. Is Zach Edey 1 3-pointer every game, $100. Don't disappoint me.
No, he's going to do it. Okay, so we got another prospect on the board. I hope I say his last name right. Dalton Knecht. I think that's what it is. So solid athlete. He's had 27 dunks in 35 games, but he's not a whoa, my mind is blown level athlete. He's not that type of athlete. And then when I think he gets to the NBA, he'll be closer to average when he's playing with all the other elite guys. But he really rose up draft boards because of his scoring. And he's a guy that can hurt you from all three levels. This is a guy 3-point, mid-range, attack the rim. He's a great spot up shooter. He's good at moving without the ball. A lot of his scoring comes in transitions, catch and shoot. He can operate as the pick and roll handler. He's not a great playmaker, but he can use his scoring to open up lanes for other guys. And he's not one of those scorers where the ball just sticks to his hands. He is a willing passer. He's just not a very good playmaker. But Dalton Knecht offensively, he's probably the most complete offensive player potentially going in the lottery right now, but he's also 23 years old, and I do have a problem drafting older guys in the lottery because I think even though he's so good offensively, I don't think he's going to be able to show the entire bag in the NBA. This is most likely going to be like a third option at the peak in his career. If he's a second option on your team's probably not very good. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. But what do you think about Dalton Knecht?
Okay, so I wrote a lot about this guy.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I do enjoy his game. I do enjoy
Mhm.
his game a lot. I agree with you on drafting someone that's a fifth year senior.
Yeah.
That's a lot going into the league. But the only good thing about that, and when you look at drafting someone that is a fifth year senior, you look at his maturity of the game. Like, he should be the most NBA ready player
Yeah.
that you draft in a lottery. With how long he's been in college, but a couple things that I put down with him that I read about him too is he broke the program record for points in the NCAA tournament with 37 points. So he broke that record as an SEC player versus Purdue, actually, which we just talked about, Zach Edey. 37 points. I did not know he scored that many points in that game.
Yeah.
And then he also had 26 points in an upset win versus Creighton before the Purdue game, which is a big game for him. That kind of helped his draft stock a lot. To move up the board. He was the 2024 SEC Player of the Year.
Oh,
That's
I forgot about that.
That's massive. With what I wrote down with his gameplay, I wrote that he's incredibly smooth off the screen as a shooter, just a catch and shoot guy. He can fade left, right, drift in any shot. Doesn't elevate a whole lot, but the way that he can still move and shoot the ball he's very active with that. He shoots 40% from three from last year, which is, I think that's pretty good for what his role was on that Tennessee Volunteer team. I do like him, but I think he's a mid-lottery pick. With how active he is, he's 6'6", 213. I really think the age is going to be maybe a problem for him, even though it's not his fault. Everyone's drafting guys that are 18, 19 years old from different countries nowadays, and it's just really hard to kind of intervene with that because he has no say in becoming younger. But I think he's a mid-lottery pick. If the Pistons were to fall, like somehow, even though it's not possible, but go to like 10 or 15, I could see that pick being acceptable, but nothing above 7.
So you're saying, so Pistons are most likely going to drop. I think right now they're going to draft in the top 5, like 1 through 5. So you're out on Dalton Knecht being a top 5 pick for the Detroit Pistons.
I don't think so. I don't think he fits Monty's system of what he's trying to build. I think he would be a Simone Fontecchio 2.0 type player. They're kind of the same. They play the same. So we already have a guy that plays like that. So I don't think that's someone you want to target. I think if you're going to go for someone, you want to get someone that has a different type of game than we already have on the roster.
So before I get into whether I think he fits with the Detroit Pistons or not, defensively, I want to get into this real quick. He's not very good because he's not quick enough to defend guards, but he also lacks the strength to defend bigger players. So he's put in this weird position where he's kind of in no man's land defensively. Now, he wasn't bad at actually blocking shots. I think he was just under a touch under 1 per game.
0.6.
And and he's not a good help side defender, but you can see where there's a role where he could actually like catch guys by surprise by blocking their shots. That doesn't make him a good defender. It's just like makes for a really cool highlight. Um, And the thing that he lacks defensively is whatever that chip is that defensive players are programmed with, because certain guys are just programmed to play defense. He just does not have whatever that thing is. And I don't think he'll have it. Like, he looks lost. And I just don't know if his offensive game is going to be good enough for him to close out games on a good team. Like, he's going to have to do something defensively. Like, whether, you know what I'm saying? Like, whether it's be a good off ball defender, maybe figure it out help side. I don't know. But that's where he lacks. And I just don't know if he'll ever be good on that side. Fit wise, offensively, even just as a catch and shoot 3-pointer, it does make a lot of sense for the Pistons, though, because they need more 3-point shooting, and he can hit open shots. You talked about it, 40% from three on 6.5. We're going to round up 7 attempts per game in college. That's huge. And that shooting is most likely going to translate. Like, he's going to be a good shooter in the NBA. I just don't know if the rest of the offensive bag comes with him. The only knock I have on him is that he is 23 years old. Now, there have been some good lottery picks like Shane Battier, Kenyon Martin, Cameron Johnson comes to mind. Those guys were all drafted at like 23 years old. And I mean, there's only one all-star appearance between all of them that comes from Kenyon Martin, but very solid players all around. I just think the age thing is the largest factor for me, but I do think his game does fit alongside Cade Cunningham, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would agree with it. I think his with his defensive attributes, I think he's a high risk, no reward player.
Yeah.
There's a lot of going for attempts at steals, and then that just causes your blow by, which then puts your defense in shambles after you miss what you weren't even close to get in the first place. He's an offensive threat. That's it. And you can still kind of you can hide players in today's game. You can. It's difficult, but that requires very good coaching. In Detroit right now, with the rotations that I'm seeing with Monty, is not something I want to see, because we'll end up having Dalton Knecht guarding LeBron, and no one knows what's going on anymore, and it's over. But I did a comparison, and this is strictly offense. This is strictly offense. I'm not talking about defensive game. I'm just talking about how he moves, how he shoots the ball, and how active he is on offense. Michael Porter Jr.
Ooh,
okay. I like his shooting. I like his mobility. He can hit the mid range. He can hit the three. Yeah. He shoots well from the free throw line, and he has the athleticism to finish at the rim. So, but defensively, not even close to Michael Porter Jr. But from a rebounding aspect, that's not. We're strictly offensive. I tried to look for defense, and I couldn't really find anybody to fit him.
Yeah, I kept thinking Duncan Robinson, but he's a better overall player than Duncan Robinson. Even though Duncan Robinson has carved out a nice career for himself, but he's more of a 3-point specialist. And Dalton Knecht, at least at Tennessee, he can score from all 3 levels. So we have one final player, and we're going to see him when the national championship game is being played, and that is Stephon Castle. I do like Stephon Castle, and I'm going to get into some of his offensive stuff. So he's not much of a shooter, to the point where defenses go underneath screens and they sag off, where they just dare him to shoot threes. And at times it looks like he's trying to do anything else but shoot the ball, which is a little concerning for me. But he can score. Castle is a big guard at 6'6" with a 6'9" wingspan, who's at his best when he has the ball in his hands, using a variety of moves to dance with the defender, get him off balance, and then attack. And he can finish over, through, under, doesn't matter. He's a good finisher around the rim. I think he's around 60% around the rim this season for UConn. And what I love about his game is how he reads and navigates the defense to find holes in it, to where, like, it kind of reminds me like a little bit of Ray Allen, and then even James Bouknight when he was at UConn. James Bouknight was very good at finding those gaps in the defense, making himself available for a pass, and then finishing the play. Stephon Castle does the same thing. I just absolutely love that about Stephon Castle. But what are your thoughts on Stephon Castle?
First thing I wrote down is, does he like to shoot threes or does he not like to shoot threes? Because I can't really tell at the moment of the first 2 minutes of his highlights. He does. He shoots it at a 28% clip. That's not successful. And you got to even think we're going to be shooting from deeper when he goes from college to the NBA. So that might drop 2% for all we know. 6'6", 215 guard as a freshman on a very successful team. So like we talked about last week, how you thought we thought that should the Pistons go get Dan Hurley. The one thing that scares me about this is him being young, but him being so successful. He's surrounded by a building block of great players.
Yep.
So if you want to take this guy, lottery or not, as a freshman going into the league, he might not be as successful as we think he is, because Dan Hurley has kind of organized something so good at UConn right now that all these players have bought in. He might not be a great individual without good leadership above him to kind of guide him and work on his game with him. But I do like how much of a team player he is. He's not selfish. He's like a guard type Jokic, just trying to get someone else the ball, and he doesn't have an issue with it. But lottery pick, maybe. Does he fit with the Pistons? Not with the scoring that we so much need right now. But would he be a good one with a Cade off too? Sure, of course. But you don't have to guard him as much as you think you do when he gets to the league. So I don't know. I like watching him play, and we're gonna see him and Zach Edey go at it together tomorrow night, Monday night, for the championship game. But I don't see him being a fit for Detroit.
Ooh, interesting. So I'm gonna get into my fit here in a second, but I do want to talk about his defense. So he has, like I said, he has great length and he knows how to use it. He can cut off lanes, really good at navigating around screens defensively, keeps his man in front of him. UConn has used him up and down the lineup on defense, which is something that I think will translate in the NBA. I think this is a guy where he could defend 1, 2s, and 3s, no problem in the NBA. I think he has the size and the strength to do that, plus a great wingspan. So defensively, I think he's great. Now, this was a tough one for me because I do love Stephon Castle's game, but with the lack of three-point shooting, I don't love his fit with Cade, because the Pistons it would be so weird to throw a lineup of out there with Cade, Castle, Asar, Simone Fontecchio, and Duren. Yeah, it would be, dude, there's no shooting other than Cade and Simone Fontecchio if you were to do something like that, which is something I could see Monty doing. But, however, since he is very good with the ball in his hands, I could see a world where they can work in the backcourt together if Cade takes a larger role off the ball. Like, I don't know if that's what you want from Cade, because I don't know if the whole 50-50 thing will work, but man, there is a world where, like, I don't know, maybe Cade kind of plays the Devin Booker role in Monty's offense, and then Stephon Castle's more of like the Chris Paul lead guard, setting people up type. I mean, even though Chris Paul can shoot the ball, he's not really known as a three-point shooter, but he still gets it done. And again, I'm not comparing Stephon Castle to Chris Paul. I'm just saying, like, maybe Troy Weaver and company, they're kind of envisioning this, what could work. Would I draft Stephon Castle in the top 5 for the Pistons? I'm going to have to say no, even though I do feel like I might be missing out on a very good player. But UConn guards have let me down the last few times I've picked them. So I'm just going to pass on them in top 5. But who's your NBA comparison for Stephon Castle?
Man, these are kind of hard, because when I do this, I don't want the viewers to think that I'm saying these names that they're supposed to be like exactly like them. Like I want their games to be like similar to, not as successful as they are in the league at the moment. But this might be a reach. But I did an offense and a defensive type for Stephon Castle, and offensive minded, I compared him to Russell Westbrook.
Ooh, interesting.
He
okay.
likes to get to the rim more than he does take a three. He will shoot the three, but you can tell he's hesitant to do it. And Russ has always been like that. But Russ is a team player. He doesn't mind dishing the ball. He likes to set other people up. And the big man from UConn, those two work so well together. So that's something that maybe the Pistons could look at, having a similar contrast of how he plays with maybe Duren. and maybe if we reach for somebody in free agency or a trade. But grabbing him and having Ivy and Cade, it's just we are just so full of guards right now. If that's the move we want to do, and then defensively might be a reach, but I said to me he reminds me of like a Jeff Teague. He's a little scrappy. He's
okay.
quick. He's always I feel like he's always in the right spot. His size is much bigger than Jeff Teague, so that's something that's better for him. But the way that I watched him play defense, that's the first person that came to mind.
Okay, so I did have an NBA comparison to him, and I got to pull up his college numbers real quick. But the guy that I was comparing him to, this is going to sound crazy, was Dwayne Wade.
Really?
Yeah, dude. It was totally Dwayne Wade.
Okay.
So it's just because, like, Dwayne Wade lacked a jump shot, too. I mean, he could hit from mid-range, but he wasn't good from the three-point line. In college, he shot 32% on 1 attempts per game. He did average 21 points per game, good rebounder, solid playmaker, could get it done on the defensive end. But there's just, I don't know, when I watch Stephon Castle play, I do see shades of Dwayne Wade. Maybe not quite as athletic from him, but just the way he moves and the way he drives, there's just some similarities, in my opinion, between those two. That and I can't even really like put my finger on it exactly, but when I watch Stephon Castle, I feel like I'm watching shades of Dwayne Wade when he was in college. And I think Stephon Castle, even without the jump shot, with the space and the way he plays in transition, he's still gonna be very successful in the NBA. I don't know. And I feel like the other part too is that when you need a big shot, Stephon Castle, like Dwayne Wade, they can just pull out some magic from somewhere and make it happen. And I don't know, maybe I'm just like overthinking it too much, but that's what I'm thinking about when I see Stephon Castle play.
Yeah, and two is I kind of want to run back to what I said. Like maybe being worried about his lack of his maturity as a young guard, being under such a great coach and being surrounded by great players. But now that I think about it, and I just took a peek at his stats. Being a freshman, starting on a point guard that's going to win another national championship, I don't know why I even thought that would be a bad idea to pick someone that's so young leading a team that's so good, because he has to have some type of intangible that makes him a leader to be starting as a freshman on this very deep UConn team. So I don't know, but when we go about being a fit for the roster we have now, everyone on the roster for Detroit, I don't see it. Not with the lack of aggressiveness from three. Defensively, that would be amazing. Him and Asar would be phenomenal as locks, because you could switch everything that those two are guarding on. But offensively, I think it might be too much for him.
See, in a perfect world, it would be kind of cool if the Pistons. I mean, obviously they're going to have Cade, but then they drafted Stephon Castle. They played Asar at the 3. You have Simone Fontecchio at the 4, but then you sign Nick Claxton to be that rim protector. You still don't have a ton of space, but like defensively, it would just be so much fun to watch that team play. It would be the length would be everywhere on the floor. You don't have a guy smaller than 6'6", and your weakest defender is Cade Cunningham, who's not terrible defensively. And I don't know, that would just be, now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like a dream lineup for me right there. So maybe they'll make it happen, but then a few trades have to happen. So
just because you're so defensive minded, man, we need to shoot the ball,
which is so weird because I'm trash on defense. Like it's just, I mean, I play with a little effort, but if we're being honest, like, dude, I'm not shutting anybody down. I mean, I'm not letting you score 50 on me. Oof. See, but I know angles. I was decent in geometry.
All right, there you go. Angles. That's all that matters.
Yeah. All right, so I got this topic, and I want to bring it up because, it's a little crazy. This comes from Jake Fisher, and he says, at this juncture, according to one source with knowledge of the situation, there is no expectation that Monty Williams would be open to any buyout of his 6-year, $78.5 million contract. Look, I don't blame Monty Williams. Like, dude, go ahead and get as much money as you want. I just wish it wasn't with the Pistons. Let me be honest with you. Like, I hate that it's with the Detroit Pistons. I'm glad the coaching money doesn't affect the cap room, but holy crap, dude. Like, just get it together, but go ahead and get paid at the same time. Like, I'm so confused by myself by saying this because I'd rather have him be fired. And that is why I struggle with this question. Should they bring Monty back or should they fire him? Because if he's going to be in Detroit for a while, this is how I think about it. On my right hand, if he's going to be in Detroit for a while, they should build a roster that fits his coaching philosophy and puts him in a position where he'll find the most success. On the other hand, I say fire him and bring in a coach that's going to maximize the potential of the core four and figure it out between Cade and Jaden Ivey and put a system around those two where they can succeed. But I don't know. I mean, like, I'm also kind of out on Ivy, so I don't know which hand I lean with. But what are your thoughts on bringing back Monty or firing him, or even just the quote if you want to mention something about that?
This guy, this information, give me a percentage on how legit this talk about is with his credibility.
With Jake Fisher?
Yeah.
So
let's be real with it first.
Yeah, he writes, I believe he writes for Yahoo Sports, and like anybody with sources, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. But there have been a few things that he's been right on because of his sources, and there's been a few things that he hasn't been right on. Now some Pistons fans say you can't trust him, but then other Pistons fans say you can trust him. So I think it's one of those things where it's like, if he doesn't agree with your way of thinking, you can't trust him. But if he does agree with your way of thinking, you can trust him. So, like anybody with sources, it's 50-50, man. I can't really give you anything better than that.
Gotcha. No, that's fine. I just didn't know if this guy had actual credibility because honestly, I've never heard of his name before. So I don't know. And that's not a hot take or any type of insult. I don't follow reporters because social media is just wild sometimes with rumors.
Yeah.
But all right, so I'm gonna start this with a question to you.
Okay.
So when we decided to do this, when we decided to pay Monty Williams this incredible amount of money, were you all in at the moment? Yes or no?
I was.
So you're all in. So back when we did this, we're all in. We already know we're in a rebuild mode. Why would we disband it? It's 1 year. Yeah, it was not good. It wasn't good, but you got to think that the guys that we did bring in free agency are going to be somewhat successful for this team. I don't know how long of a future it's going to be, but if we're going to do this with Monty, if we're going to give him the opportunity to build a team, let him build a team. Because if we fire him, we're technically going to go into another rebuild mode. The players are saying that they do like him. There's no hostility with the players. The players are saying it, and unless they're lying for some reason, which why would you do that? If the players like him and the players want to play for him, I say you give him a shot. You give him a draft. You let him do what he wants to do. You let him put together the people that he wants in his system, and you run it back another year. And we have this conversation again in 2025, and then we'll see what their record is. Now if they piss away another 13-win season, okay, maybe we want to have some type of discussion about this. But I feel you need to give a man a little bit of time to work and see what he's going to generate for us, and then go from there.
So are you breaking up the core four of Duren, Asar, Jaden Ivey, and Cade Cunningham? I mean, you're not trading Cade, but are you trading one of the three or all three to bring in players so Monty Williams has success?
If we win games, I don't care.
Okay,
it's all about winning games. Unfortunately, as much as people talk about it, like basketball's a business. Like this is just a business. These contracts, it's just money, man. It's just like I wake up and go to work every week. It's just what they pay me to do. It just depends on where they're going to place me and how well I do at my job. Like that's why people are getting paid and being placed where they are. So if we win games, I don't care if our whole team is guys that are 15 years in the league. Give me more than 25 wins in a season. Like be successful, like build something, because right now we're building bricks in a house that's not even close to finished. And it looks horrible.
It's been 30 wins in 2 seasons as of right now. They have, I think, 4 games left on the season. They had 17 wins last year. They have 13 right now. They are 3 wins away from tying the franchise record of 16 wins, which would be the worst of all time. I think they get under 16. I don't think there's no way they win the next 4 games. It's impossible. And I mean, see, the thing is, I lean towards the way you're thinking. Give Monty Williams a chance. I don't think he's a great coach by any stretch of the imagination. because most of his winning seasons have came with Chris Paul on his team. I think he's had one winning season without Chris Paul, and I think that was like Anthony Davis's second year in the league or something like that. Now he has had an NBA Finals appearance, but again, that was with Chris Paul on his team. And I just think this dude is way too stubborn, doesn't want to change his philosophy. He can't get players to buy into what he's doing offensively. And I think as much as his reputation is as a player's coach, he's kind of cold towards players. I feel like he's the type of dude that will push you away until you are deemed worthy to be like in his little group of people. You know what I'm saying? You know, some people do that where they kind of shun you, they're kind of quiet, you don't know what you did, but then suddenly they just accept you and you guys are like best friends. That's what I kind of feel like it is with Monty Williams. And but again, I think dude, as long as he's under contract, you need to put the players around him for him to succeed. And you need to put a finally a winning roster around these guys. But so yeah, I agree with you on that. I agree giving him a chance.
It's not my money. I don't care what he does with it. Like if he wants to buy this man out and hire someone else, whatever, man. It's like it's not affecting our cap space. It's not affecting who we're going to bring as free agents, but it does kill our chemistry on our team. Yeah. And I hate it. What do the young people say? Let him cook, whatever that is. Like let him make something. I don't know. Like let him put something together. Give him an opportunity. Because he has some success. You wouldn't have paid him this much money. We wouldn't have wrote the check. Like, oh yeah, we'll take care of this. And then I'm pretty sure they put in the contract too that they've been taking care of his wife, like because she's had cancer or something like that. Yeah, they put a huge package deal for this guy. Like they took care of him. So maybe that'll happen on the court at some point where he'll give us what we want as fans. And to what you said about the cold shoulder thing, is that Jaden Ivey? Is that Jaden Ivey?
So there is that quote from Jaden Ivey earlier in the year that like he didn't know what was going on, and then he finally realized, oh, I'm going to be coming off the bench. Then he says something along the lines like, okay, I was cool with it. I love these guys. I'll do whatever it takes or something. But like, yeah, it seemed like Monty Williams just kind of, I don't know, like whether I don't think he watched film on him. I don't think he knew his strength and his weaknesses. I don't know if he knew what he could bring to the team, but it did feel like Monty Williams just kind of shut him out at the beginning of the season, and Jaden Ivey didn't know what the hell was going on. That's just what it felt like. And I don't know. I mean, dude, I'm so torn on this though. Like I've already said, like I do agree with you. You should give the guy a chance, but also at the same time, I've been saying like you should fire Monty and you should find the right guy. Like bring in like a guy like Charles Lee. He was a coaching candidate that was, you know, he was in the running last year with Kevin Ali. And I think Jason Collins to a degree was in that hunt as well. But Charles Lee was one of those dudes where, I mean, I really don't know how you judge basketball coaches because it's not like football where you can see what an offensive coordinator's his clear role is on the team and you know his responsibilities. Basketball, it's a little bit different. But Charles Lee was coming from a situation where, you know, it's, you know, he worked with two big men and, you know, they had some good guards, blah, 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 in Milwaukee. It was just something that I was excited about. And if you were to bring in a young, hungry coach that is trying to make a name for himself and you wanted to fire Monty and do that, I'd be perfectly okay with that. I'd be on board with it.
If they want to start over, man, then I'll just, if they trade this guy, I can't spend another $160 on a jersey, man. Like we got to commit to something so I can actually be a fan. But I just don't want to go another year of them flashing the camera to Monty with his arms crossed, holding a piece of paper that nobody knows what the hell's on it. I can't do another whole year of it if we're only going to win 10 games. So if they want to move on, if they want to do it, then do it. You need to do it now because we can't do 2-3 years of one and then another 2 years of another. We need to commit to something. And if we're just going to commit to being bad right now, then that's what we do until we figure out if we're actually going to build something special.
And that is a fair point as well. Like you have to commit in one direction because this will be his, I believe this is going to be his final year of his rookie contract, like the qualifying offer. And then he signs the max extension, which I think he can sign this offseason, and then it will carry over. It will start the following year. But you're right. You do have to, the clock is ticking for you to build something. And we all agree that you're building around Cade Cunningham. You want him to be here for the long haul. So I do agree with you. You got to do something to make Cade happy and build a team around him that allows Monty to be successful. So
Do you
hopefully we'll see.
do you
We'll
think
see.
these players like two questions for you?
Okay.
First one, do you think there is turmoil in that locker room that we don't know about? Like, is a media play by these guys saying that, oh, we love him, we love him, we love him, but then you're like, I really can't do this right now.
This is why I wish I had sources, because I wish I really did know.
We do that Fisher guy.
Yeah, well, dude, we don't know him personally, but
Send him an email.
I don't think I do love the beat writers in Detroit. Like I think Omari, James Edwards, Rod Beard's not a beat writer anymore, but Corey Woods, and I might be forgetting someone because Mike Curtis is going to Dallas. He'll be there this next season. He was awesome. I love talking to Mike Curtis. But I do feel like they do a good job with the information they are given. And I don't think any of them would talk about turmoil in the locker room as it's happening. That would probably be something we'd hear about down the line. Now, if you're asking me just my opinion, I don't think there's turmoil, but I do feel like there is a disconnect from some certain players. Like you don't really see it on the floor, but like it's other things I've read from just other fans that do have ears that are closer to the situation, where it does seem like there is a little bit of disconnect. And just by some of the quotes from some of the players, where I think it might have been Cade Cunningham, where he said the words like some of us are all in or something along those lines. So it's kind of a little telling that there might be a little disconnect in the locker room. But turmoil where guys are butting heads and everything like that, I don't think that's really going on in Detroit.
Okay, I think some of them genuinely like playing with each other. Like I think Cade
Yeah.
and Duran actually have a good relationship, and I think that's super important. Now with other players, I don't see it as well. Like I think Ivy was the young kid that tried to join the fraternity, and they just kept trying to kick him out until they're finally like, all right, this guy's not that bad. We'll just let him in. And now he's just kind of fitting in to that role a little bit, but we've been discussing trading him like way too much to want to keep him on the team.
The weird thing is too, like we can move on after this, but I just want to get this out because now that we're talking about it, I do kind of feel like Jaden Ivey is kind of like the odd man out in terms of like hanging out with those guys. I mean, I know Cade has a kid as well. Jaden Ivey, he's just kind of starting up his family. But for like a young team, it just seems like he would be the guy that like, hey, we're gonna go out, we're gonna go get dinner. He'd be like, I gotta go home. Like he would be the guy that's not at the table
Yeah.
when they're building that camaraderie. I don't know. That's just how I feel about him.
Yeah. Okay. I got my other question if you want it. And
Yeah, go ahead.
we
Go
can
ahead.
make it quick. Do you think the players have a say in draft picks?
Not this early in their careers. I think
Not
eventually
Cade? You don't ask Cade what he thinks?
I would
I
personally
would.
ask him. I personally would ask
Okay.
him, like, what kind of guy fits your game? Who do you think you could build with?
Yep.
Like are there because he is the franchise, but I typically don't think guys this early in their career really have a say in how the
Okay.
roster construction is going
Nowadays,
on.
nowadays, all these players a lot of these successful college athletes are working out with NBA players in off
Yeah.
season. So that's why I'm just curious if you think that they call up Cade like, hey man, like we're gonna look at these three guys. Which one? Like, tell me what you want. Like, why do you want them? Why would they fit? I think that'd be important. Like, I even think it's important in the NFL. Like when they draft players, like you want to get guys that people are willing to play with. So
Yep. No, it's fair. It's fair. I mean, maybe they call Cade. Well, who knows? So we got a quote from James Edwards from his recent mailbag athletic article. I love his mailbags. Doesn't do them very often, but they are fun. They got those little nuggets of information. So he says, however, as of right now, the likeliest scenario to me is that Gores and company hire someone in a president of basketball operations, team president role, who will be above Troy Weaver and have the final say on roster decisions, leaving Weaver to still be involved, but not necessarily have the final say. This is from James Edwards. Now, he's not putting it out there like this is what's going to happen. I want to make that very clear. He's kind of speculating to a degree. I hope that's not the case with the Pistons. I would really love to see Troy Weaver actually have a chance to build the team without any interference so we as fans can have an idea of if he's a good or a bad at his job. Like, I would love for him to actually have a say in building the roster the way he should build it. And I just think it's a bad idea to have another cook in the kitchen. But what are your thoughts on that?
It's too many people making decisions, man.
It is.
There's too many people making decisions, and when I feel like when they're trying to make these decisions, they're not agreeing on anything. So when we're making these picks or we're making these moves, I feel like you're sitting there, they're sending emails back and forth. What do you think about this guy? Well, I like him, but what about this guy? And then it's just a continuous cycle of not agreeing upon who they want to bring in with the system. I think them also too with the bringing on Monty Williams. I think it was also kind of like, let's just get this guy because of a name base, not like really what his coaching talent was at the moment, because his team was full of superstars, so that's why his success was as potent as it was when we got him. But I think there's too many people. I think we're just hiring supervisors to a job that needs one. We got 6. We're just putting people on salary just because. Yeah. But like I said, it's not my money. I don't care what they do with it. You want to donate to charity, or like Gores, if you want to do this, you want to do that, you want to help build a sign in Detroit, I don't care what you do with it. But you can't keep bringing in people that aren't going to be on the same page. As much as this I understand as a Pistons podcast, I am so in love with what they're doing with the Lions right now. I'm so in love with it because Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, my boy MCDC, those guys, they work together so well. And Sheila knows it, so she just lets them run with it. And right now with the Pistons, we're all just contemplating each other. And we don't know who's good or who has what say. So I think adding anybody is just going to create more of a fire.
So we both agree it's a bad decision to be bringing another cook into the kitchen. Okay. Yeah. So you asked me, are there too many people involved in decision-making draft? Yes, I 100% do. Like it's ridiculous because you hired Troy Weaver to do a job, and that job was to build a competitive roster that could potentially compete for many years. He fixed the cap situation where you actually have money to spend in the offseason, but then you have guys like, I believe it's Arn Tellem, who steps in and he makes a decision. Like, I guess like some of the guys they've drafted in the second round, like Servidis or whatever, like it wasn't Troy Weaver's decision. It was someone else's in the front office. It just pisses me off, dude, because like I really want to see Troy Weaver have an opportunity to build the roster his way. Could he do like what they did in Oklahoma City? Because apparently he was the guy that said, look, I'll put everything on drafting Russell Westbrook in the lottery. And I don't know if they were going to do it or not, but apparently that's what I heard about Troy Weaver. He was the guy that said draft Russell Westbrook. And if he is, then damn, you got to let him do his job.
Yeah. What do I hope you've seen it. You've seen Draft Day with Kevin Costner?
Yes, I have seen that.
It's what essentially what I'm looking at right now is there's so many people trying to make decisions with a man that's trying to do it himself and no one's letting him do it.
Yep.
Let him make an empowering move. Like let's see if he can build, because if you give him the opportunity, you give him the reins, you let him create what he wants to create, and it sucks, then we answered it and he's done. That's where we're at. But if you constantly are antagonizing or trying to bring people along that are trying to help him do his own job, like we got 3 people doing the same thing and we're paying them all different X amount of money for it. I think it's very similar to that type of movie. Like he wants to make a move and they're like, you don't do this. This is stupid. And then he's like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to just do what you say. No, I think you hire the man to do what he's supposed to do. And if he's unsuccessful at it, then we make him part ways and we move on.
So do you think it's fair just to blame Troy Weaver for this entire mess, or do you think blame should be placed on many people's hands?
I think that falls in his payroll and his job description. If the team isn't successful and he's the GM, who else is there to blame? I feel like he has to take it on the chin. I feel like that comes with the salary. Like if you won't have a successful season, they're going to point fingers at the owner, the GM, the coach. And I mean, essentially it's the players that are the ones that not producing on the court. But I think it's the reason you take those jobs is people move on from you so fast when you're not successful.
So, but you are placing most of the blame on Troy Weaver.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Until because I mean, at some point, if you're the GM, you can't tell me that you're my general manager, and I come to you and I say, dude, Zach Edey, first round pick, and you're like, I don't know, and I'm like, no, do it, and then you just decide to do it because I said it instead of making your own decision, even though you had something else in mind. I feel like that's where the blame has to come from because essentially he can put his foot down and make his own decision.
That's what I was just about to ask you. Like, it does
Yeah.
seem like Troy Weaver should put his foot down and just say, "Look, you hired me to do a job.
Correct.
Let me do my job, and if I fail at my job, then you can let me go."
Yes.
But you need to, yeah. And I mean, again, maybe there have been conversations like this between Troy Weaver and the other guys in the front office, but it just doesn't seem like there's been conversations like that. So I don't know. I don't blame all of Troy Weaver. I do think some of it falls on Monty Williams, but I do think a larger percentage falls on Troy Weaver's. And I do think Tom Gore should be held responsible as well because he did play a huge role in the hiring process for Monty. Now, the rumor has it that I guess Troy Weaver did like Monty Williams as a head coach. He just didn't think it was possible to bring it in. So Tom Gore said, "Hey, I'm just going to throw a bunch of money at him, and this is what's going to happen."
Yeah.
I don't know how much truth there is to that. That's just something that I've heard.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I just don't blame it all on Troy Weaver. I blame it on everybody, but majority of the blame goes to him. So we do have a fun topic for you guys, and Mike Greenberg started this whole thing off, and he's by saying the UConn Huskies could make the play-in. No, they're not. I don't know who said the UConn Huskies could beat the Detroit Pistons, but that's crazy. The Pistons are an NBA team from top to bottom, 1 through 15. They're all NBA players. All these dudes would cook in college. That's why they're in the NBA. So this comes from the Dan Patrick Show, but DraftKings favored the Pistons by 45 points, which I think for an NBA team, that's kind of low. You know what I'm saying? Because you are playing against like guys. There's going to be guys that are getting minutes on UConn that will probably not even play pro basketball. But is that too much or is that too low?
I'd take UConn plus 45.
See, I was thinking the same thing.
I'm not going to bet my mortgage on it, but I'd take UConn plus 45. 45 points is a lot. Like that's not even as much as Portland's lost twice this year, 60 points to 60 point L's. But you know how sports media goes. Someone's got to say some outrageous stuff just to be like pissing someone off for no reason. Like we're already mad that we can't win 16 games. You don't need to throw us completely under the bus and say we suck that
exactly.
bad. Like, come on now. Like I would take Cade on over anyone on UConn, and Duren would destroy anyone on UConn. But then again, I think with coaching ability, I think UConn could be plus 45.
Yeah, I think the Pistons win, but it'd be like 44. That's why I would take UConn. Like, I don't know if the Pistons would win by 45 points, and it just seems
it would never be serious.
Saying that out loud.
It would never be serious. It would never be serious. So that's why I don't look at it as actually like a hot topic debate, because it's just someone being a Skip Bayless and be like, well, Brittany Griner is better than Shaq. It's like, what did you just say? Like, I don't know about this. Like, you're pretty crazy. Like, you know, if anything, the Pistons need to draft Caitlin Clark for publicity purposes, because we would sell a lot of seats if we just brought her on board.
Yeah, I just want to see her cook in the WNBA. Get that league going. Yeah. Oh, she's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
All right. We have one final topic, and that is the great Chauncey Billups, Mr. Big Shot, has made the Basketball Hall of Fame. Yep. Give him a round of applause. I'm not going to clap too loud because I have kids sleeping. But Chauncey Billups, again, inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, Finals MVP. I think he was a 2 or 3-time All-NBA, 2 or 3-time All-Defense. I think I want to say a 3 or 4-time All-Star. I keep saying the 3 or 4, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he was there, and he was great, dude. I loved watching him. I say a lot of guys are one of my favorites, but the point guard that I learned the most from was definitely Chauncey Billups. Like, I learned how to pull up shoot because of Chauncey Billups. I forget which game it was, and I think I was like maybe in 8th grade, maybe a freshman in high school or something. But he was talking about Larry Brown and how he helped him learn how to pull up jumper. And I started watching Chauncey Billups more and more, and I finally figured it out. I'm like, oh, that's what that is. So he was the guy that I learned so much from, like learning how to control a game, learning how to pick your spots. Chauncey was He is my favorite Pistons point guard of all time. He is just incredible. But my question to you is, will any other member of the Going to Work squad make the Hall of Fame?
No.
I
I
agree
think
with
I
that.
think I think Chauncey and Ben Wallace are the only two that are gonna really relish that award because it's a big honor. And talking about Chauncey, I just have to say the miracle shot in 2004 was when I fell in love with Chauncey
Talking
Billups.
about against New Jersey,
Yes,
the
that
half
was
court shot.
that
Yeah.
that I fell in love with him ever since that shot. I mean, I liked him before, but that's when I really was like, this guy is him. He is the leader of this team. I think it took him too long to induct him into the Hall of Fame. I've always been a huge Chauncey Billups fan, but as much as I love Rip Hamilton and the Palace Prince, like the Palace Prince, the block that he had in the playoffs too as well was incredible. But when it comes to the big moments, I think Chauncey is overall the one deserving to go out of that group of players.
So I'm going to answer this, and I'm going to tell you, I think Richard Rip Hamilton might have a chance of making, because it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the
Yeah.
NBA Hall of Fame.
Yep.
But in terms of basketball awards, he was a three-time All-Star. He was an NBA champion. See, I think to make the Hall of Fame, though, you should have at least four, either some combination. It's either four All-NBA teams or four All-Defensive teams or some combination of the both. And you need to make a minimum of four All-Star appearances. I think it needs to be that, in my opinion, to be a Hall of Famer. I think there needs to be some criteria, even though the All-Star game is watered down. I think it just recognizes you as one of the best players, but I also think you're taking it a step further. If you make an all NBA team, you're, in my mind, you're one of the 15 best players in the NBA. And I think you need to be considered top 15 at least four times in your career, whether it's, all NBA or all defensive team. But you look at his amateur awards, he was a McDonald's All-American in 95, 96. He was an Associated Press All-American second team in 97, 98. And he was a All-American Associated Press All-America first team in 98, 99. And I think he was MVP of the Final Four. I'll have to look up his college stuff too. Are you clicking away too?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he was NCAA champion, NCAA tourney, two-time NCAA region, high school parade, Big East Player of the Year twice, Big East tournament team twice, Big East all freshman. Yeah, I think he might go to the Hall of Fame just for the college resume as well. You combine both, he might make it.
Yeah, I loved him watching him. The pull-up game for days, man. The dude, the mid-range, one of the mid-range kings, dude. Like I loved watching his game. There's no doubt in my mind that he doesn't have the skill set or the accolades to back him up to go and be a Hall of Fame player at all. But looking at right now, like as much as the new NBA is transpiring, when it comes to awards, man, I really hate to say it, but I think it's all publicized. Like they want to pick the guys that people want to watch. Like it doesn't matter. Like LeBron could have 6 points a game and they'll still vote him in as an all-star because he's him. That's how I look at it. And it's unfortunate because people get scuffed every year in an all-star appearance. And it's hard to watch sometimes, but as time goes on, I hope it doesn't continue to be like this. But I would love to get Rip Hamilton into the Hall of Fame. I think they all deserve it. I mean, they're champions. Like, I mean, we get Rashid in for his text. Like, why not? Like him and Draymond, we go one-on-one. Who is the most annoying? Like, I would love to have all of them into the Hall of Fame.
Do you know that Rasheed Wallace is third on the all-time technical list?
I looked it up.
Yeah, Charles Barkley and I think Karl Malone are 1 and 2 ahead of him.
It's crazy.
Did you know that Tayshaun Prince though was also 4-time all defense?
In Detroit, what years?
Man, I'd have to let me see this real quick.
Because Tayshaun
04, 05, 05, 06, 06, 07, 07, 08.
Okay.
All defensive second teams though.
Second teams. Okay. I don't think
Who do you think
them anything.
This will be the final question I ask you though, but who do you think was the most talented player from the Going to Work squad?
Oh man, that's really tough, dude.
Most talented though. Maybe not the best player, but the most talented.
Ben Wallace.
I say Rashid.
Rashid he was an important asset, and he was talented with his
The
shot.
man's jersey right there.
You got number 3 behind you too. Quit it.
Oh yeah, dude, he's my favorite.
Ben, I think Ben Wallace with his toughness and how he was able to adapt to each team they played with their successful runs in the playoffs. I think him being the anchor. I think he was the most important person on that team because he was the most consistent defensively. Because we didn't rely on him to be a shooter, but he showed up every game defensively with boards and blocks. I mean, he was always that guy around the rim, and I think that really helped the Pistons be as successful as they were.
Yeah, they always say the Pistons that team was never built around any one player. In my opinion, that team was built around Ben Wallace and his defense.
Yeah.
I think it really was. But in terms of most talented, it's definitely Rashid. And I felt like when it came to his career, he left so much more meat on the bones, and he could have done so much more with the talent that he had. But he's just like, dude, I don't care. Like
But
I'd
Dennis
rather just
Rodman,
win. Well, Dennis Rodman squeezed more out of his career than
he played
probably
longer.
anybody. Like, dude, he just wasn't. Well, I mean, just like the effort he gave, like he wanted it. I'm not saying Rasheed Wallace didn't, but Rasheed Wallace was a very talented player, and there's no reason he shouldn't have been one of the top 3 power forwards of his time. He definitely had the talent to be up there. But yeah, all right.
Rashid,
go on.
I don't know with Rashid. So do you think he had more left in the tank for the Pistons? You're saying?
I'm saying I think he could have done more with his NBA career. I think he could have made more All-Star appearances. I think he could have made an All-NBA team. I think he could have been, like I'm saying, like one of the best players in the league. But he didn't want that for his career.
I think his success was driven just because he knew his role on that team. I think that's why he was as good as he was, because he knew he didn't have to overstep in certain positions. Like he had to be the bad guy that shot threes and helped on boards when need be. Like that's why he was so successful, because his role was perfectly played right just by him.
All right, that's fair. All right. Thank you guys for listening to the 3 Championship Drive podcast. Do me a favor, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating. But more importantly, tell a Pistons fan